To dodge tax, Mr. Chair.
Chris Farfoy.
Much, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak to Part 1, which does amend the Student Loan Scheme Act 2011. I want to concentrate my contribution in the first instance to Clause 17, which replaces Section 114 of the Principal Act, and that's titled, the clause itself is titled Notification of Worldwide Income by New Zealand-based non-resident borrowers. Sounds technical, but I'll get to the point soon. Because thank you, Mr. Chair. Because the argument has been made on this side of the House, Mr. Chair, around the principles around a fair taxation system and around the obligations that people who have taken out student loans and potentially moved overseas have to meet in order to pay their fair share, to repay their student loans back. And we want to make sure there's consistency within this piece of legislation and with the taxation system as a whole. So Clause 17, which does replace Section 114, talks about these worldwide income by New Zealand-based non-residents, and it goes on. 1141 says that the section applies to New Zealand-based borrower who is a non-resident who has a Schedule 3 adjustment. So I've gone to Schedule 3 of the Principal Act, Mr. Chair, to see what might entail if there was a Schedule 3 adjustment. And Clause 11 of Schedule 3 talks about borrowers who are settlers of trusts. And it goes on to say that Schedule 3 applies or does not apply if the trustee of the borrower's trust is registered to a charitable entity. I think that many speakers have spoken about that, that the borrower's trust is solely for the benefit of a local authority. I can understand that. But it goes on, Clause 11.3 of Schedule 3 goes on to a very, well, not too complicated formula to ascertain the adjustment within Schedule 3 to the New Zealand-based non-residents' payments in a specific year. And it says that the rough calculation is A plus B divided by D. I don't want to bore people at home with the detail, but I have to because this is the committee stage, where A is the net income of the trustee of the borrower's trust for the income year reduced to not less than zero by the amount of the trustee's income that vests or is paid by the trustee as a beneficiary income for the income year. Now, plus B, and B is the greater of zero and the total of amounts calculated in accordance with subclause 4 for each company in which the trustee of the borrower's trust and associated persons holding voting interests of 50% more of the last day of the company's income year. And D is the number of settlers of the borrower's trust who are alive at any time in the income year, including the borrower to which this clause applies. My point is, Mr. Chair, that is a hang of a lot of information. I don't entirely understand it all, but it is a lot of information to disclose for a New Zealander who has got their interest in a trust, who has obligations back to the New Zealand people to pay back money that they have borrowed in order to study. A lot of information. And we've been talking about the principle of consistency around the obligation to make sure you pay your fair share of income tax. And I think there is an inconsistency here about the information that is demanded from someone who is a New Zealander resident overseas who has a trust and has an obligation to pay back to the state their student loan based on what they're earning. And let's say a foreign trust where these people have come from overseas, set up a trust, and all we demand from them, Mr. Chair, is a name. So there might be a theme developing here, but I think this is one instance in Clause 17 where we must take a principled approach to taxation, that if we are demanding information of the complicated nature that we have within Schedule 3 under Clause 114, which is new Clause 17 within this bill, why haven't we got that same consistency of the demanding of information from those who hold foreign trusts in New Zealand? That is a question that I would like to pose to the Minister and the Chair. Why is the government not taking that move for consistency? Why isn't there the consistency? And I know it might be a bit complicated for the government. It might be too complicated for the government. And that's all, Mr Chair.
Grant Robertson.